This is Scene Zero, where we talk about what's coming up on this episode. If you're watching on YouTube right now on the screen, you will have a list of all the things and the subjects that come up in this episode. You can jump straight there right now. If you're looking in the YouTube description, everything is linked up, as is it in the audio show notes. What do we talk about in this episode?
So we talked about the Russell Peters show.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Everyone that was there. Batman, you went to see him.
I went to see Batman, yeah. That's right. I went down to the cave.
You went to see,
yeah.
You went to
you
see
can tell this is the first Scene Zero. We're going to be looking for a...
You went to see the movie, but there's no spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers. Yeah, you got spoiler-free version of... But do you feel like it was spoiler-free?
Yeah, it was spoiler-free.
Okay, spoiler-free. Okay, so if you...
It hypes it up.
It hypes it up, yeah. Exactly.
Cool.
What else do we talk about this on this episode?
A couple of events that we might be doing in the next
Yeah,
2 or
you're going to
3
get a
weeks.
preview of the events. You might get a little announcement, you might not. A little bit of talk about International Women's Day.
Yep.
A little bit of talk about cryptocurrency. Super wicked episode. Make sure you stay tuned. Alex, we don't have title music, but we're going to have it by the time this episode comes out. Run it. Welcome to the Raj Kotecha Show, #1 podcast in Dubai. We are here for a special episode of ALGO, which seems to be the podcast that we're doing more than normal podcasts, but that will change in the coming weeks. With me, as always, is Vik.
What's up?
And professional hobnobber.
What's up?
There's nobody who's out-hobnobbed you, especially in the 17 to 19-year-old age bracket. Alex,
What's up?
welcome. We'll talk a little bit more about that coming up. You'll already have seen the list of things that we talk about today. So the first subject is...
Russell Peters.
Yeah, so here we are. Russell held us down, as did Clayton and the whole crew. Russell was in town. Now, we mentioned a couple of podcasts ago, that Russell was coming to the Coca-Cola Arena. Turns out the event was a complete sellout.
Yep.
So congratulations to Dan and Rob and all the folks that were involved in putting that together. An incredible show.
Amazing.
Yeah?
Yeah, I loved it.
Let's talk about you as a first time seeing Russell.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of his stuff online and everything, but first time seeing it live, and I haven't been to a comedy show in a while, so it was a good time. Loved it.
Pre-COVID, did you go to a lot of comedy shows?
No, I've been to 2 in my whole life.
And tell him which ones, because that's fun.
Which ones?
What? Kevin Hart in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
I was young though, a while back.
Yeah.
And a French one called Jamel Debbouze.
Okay.
So his entrance into comedy was like Kevin Hart and Russell Peters and this French guy. Like two of the biggest comedians in the world.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
I'd rather you went in the other way, kind of, but...
Yeah,
Right,
but how many
pause.
comedians? How many comedians came to Abu Dhabi? Think about it. That's
No,
where I
but
grew
then
up.
again, it's like,
It's not like-
comedy is regulated.
True.
So, you're not going to get like the small room thing that we did when we were coming up with. You get to see like small acts,
Yeah.
I went to the Edinburgh Comedy Festival, and I think, I can't remember which, it was at the time. Oh, it was Frankie Boyle. In peak Frankie Boyle. And
That
there was like
would've been
18
amazing.
of us in the room.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, it was like, it was like a stock room with like handkerchiefs and stuff in the bar, and like it was just like a small room, and they're putting a bunch of rickety old wooden chairs, and it's in Edinburgh, and it smelled of like wood and whiskey, and it's using his hometown, or at least in his home country. So yeah, so good. So you enjoyed it,
Yeah, I loved it.
and
It was
then
amazing.
hobnobber, because second week in a row, it's like rubbing shoulders with like artists and influencers. So we went backstage afterwards. So
Yep.
as you can see, if you're watching the video right now, on my microphone stand, which I believe will become premium inventory as time goes on, in terms of the video, we've got the access all area passes that we were kindly given by the team, so that we just kind of had an incredible experience. I love our relationship with that crew.
Yeah.
And I love how generous they are. I hate that we will never be able to be as generous with them as they are with us, because we just don't live the wild life that they live. But no, it's super incredible. And what do you think?
Me going backstage was amazing.
It was proper backstage.
Yeah, proper
I thought we were going to
backstage.
go
Yeah.
down a corridor today. He was like, no, you literally walk behind the stage. Yeah.
No, it was sick. Also, like, just seeing everybody, seeing Clayton again, because he was the first podcast we did, I was with for you.
Oh, yeah.
Clayton. So seeing him again was nice.
He recognized you?
Yeah. We
I
talked to each other.
actually reintroduced Alex and I completely forgot. He goes,
Yeah,
of course I know
yeah.
Alex.
No,
So
that
that
was
nice.
cool, yeah. Yeah, it was really nice. Russell, same person as he is on stage, just
Yeah.
always making jokes, which is cool.
Yeah, rapid.
Yeah.
What did you expect before going backstage and then actually going backstage?
So I didn't really know what to expect, because like it's just I've never gone like backstage after an event like that. So I didn't know like how many people would be there, what like the vibe is, like what's happening and everything. But super chill. talk to whoever you want. Food there, drinks, whatever. It's cool.
Nice.
It's kind of a lot of everything and a lot of nothing at the same time.
Yeah. Everybody's there just to chill. Like, it's not like fans or anything. It's just...
Yeah, it's a really good bunch of people. We've got some shout outs to give there as well. What do you think, Vic? You've done it a bunch of times, but you enjoyed the show? Because on this particular situation, or in this particular event, Vic and I were not sat together because we got some tickets from here, some tickets from there. But yeah, what do you think of the show?
I think Russell was on good form this time. Like, I think he even said it. We went to see him in Abu Dhabi a few months ago, and he had a couple of bits there that he did again this time round, but they were so much tighter. And he even said it as well. And I said to him, this bit. He's like, yeah, it was just like been working on it, tightening them up. And I think he was really fluid. His crowd work was really good.
Yeah, his crowd work was excellent.
It was very, very good. I sound like I'm surprised. I'm not, but it was very good this time.
I think the thing is because Russell, when he first emerged on the scene, everything that he was doing was very fresh in terms of, crowd work and working with different races and playing with people's names and relationships and finding about their parents. Your dad's from here, your mom's from there. But it felt fresh again. It's clearly not because it's part of his act. But the way he did it, it did have that kind of like 2005, 2006 energy again, where he himself seemed in good spirits. And he just got married 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
So his whole soul just seemed like in a good place, and I was really happy for him because, we've seen on Joe Rogan and, even through conversations we've had with him that life's not just a beach chair for him. Like there is real stuff going on. When you live on the road, and that's kind of where you make a lot of your money, a pandemic's not going to help with that. Do you know what I mean? So, so it was just nice to see him as a human being in such a good place. So I was like, it was really, really nice, man. And we got a little clip to play from that as well. Tips for podcasting.
Let's get some light on us, number one. There's tip number one. Yeah. Tip number two, be you, but not you, because you're a cunt.
Equality.
I was thinking to myself, I was like, when I first walked in, because I went to the bathroom, you guys went straight to the changing room to hang out with him, and then I walked in, and I saw Russell, I was like, hello, you cunt. And then I was like, oh, shit. There might be people in the room that don't get that. And I thought it's only Alex that might not get that, because that's like a kind of a two-way nickname. So it was, anyway, everything was cool. Shout outs to some of the folks we met backstage, including...
So Danny Neville, Hyku, Dan Greenpeace, Rob, Dan's partner, Clayton Roberts, Labito, Waleed, Hans, Scratch, of course, Clayton Peters, of course, Pick, and their whole crew. Yeah, their whole crew, Justin, everybody. It was so nice to see everybody. And every time we open that can of worms, you have to forgive us because we're not always going to remember everybody, but we just, we definitely have mad love for everybody. And Hyku was in great spirits as well. I love seeing her. Like, my backstory with her is we were outside Seoul DXB once, and I was exhausted. And she came up to me, she's like, can you take a picture for me of her crew? And I was like, oh God, I'm like really, really knackered. And I was probably like a little bit down energy, but her energy always is so high. So when we were taking a picture, then she told me she's got her own like production company. And I told her I've got one, and we just connected. And then she came to My Friends, Your Friends as a co-host. So like, she's just one of those hustlers in the city. Do you know what I mean? That's always doing a thing. And shout out to Jessie, her husband as well, who's just like the kind of like the antithesis of her. Like, she's bubbling around and she's super high fashion. Jessie's like super chill, doesn't speak too much, but like, I've had a chance to have a conversation with him a few times, and he's just so bright and such a nice dude. Same energy, just different ways of expressing it. And I just love those two. They're just always going around the city doing their thing. Everywhere that there's something going down, they're there, and they're just doing great work. So shout out to Hyku. We'll tag her up in the show notes. And before we wrap on the Russell Peters point as well, ALINGON MITRA. Yeah. That's his name, right? Yeah, the opening act.
Yeah, the opening act. That was interesting because, we did meet him afterwards, and he was a very nice guy. After meeting him and after seeing how calm and chill he was, I then realized, after you meet the person and not just a dude on stage, that I was like, can you imagine being a brown comic opening for the biggest brown comic of all time? Like, that's got to be more pressure than being a black guy or a white guy coming on, or any other race that's not an Indian as well. Like, not just brown, like could be South American or otherwise, like an actual Indian comic opening for Russell Peters. And I was like, man, that must have been crazy pressure-wise. And still, the guy did really good.
Yeah, I thought he did great.
What did you think of him?
Yeah, I thought he did great.
Yeah?
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah.
I think he was very good. I spoke to him for some time afterwards. He's been, a comic for like 13 or 15 years. So he's well seasoned in that world as such. And he's a road comic as well. So he does his spots in New York, but he's he's headlining around the country.
Is he?
So yeah, because at that kind of 10, 12, 13, 15 year mark, and if you're a road comic, you need to be getting to that headline point, and he's doing that, and he's very like accomplished in that world. He even told me that he went on tour with Akash Singh and his crew.
Oh,
in India.
nice.
Yeah, so when just before Flagrant went on to Patreon,
Yeah.
and around that sort of time, I think it was 2016, 17, he said,
Yeah.
if I remember my dates correctly. So he's accomplished and seasoned at his kind of level of comedy. I think he held his own. I mean, it's a big stage, a big crowd, a lot of pressure, as you said. It's Russell Peters. So there's a lot at stake there. I think he started off a bit slow, purposefully, because he was trying to feel the crowd, understanding, what can he say? It's Dubai, what can't he say? What references will work? And then he just got into his stride and he just went off.
Yeah, once he got into, I mean, his act literally was like, it just moved up and to the right. But it started off very, very like, some stuff hits, other stuff didn't hit. You're right. Like with us when we're DJing, the first 30 minutes of records, not every single one's going to land as you try and figure out what's the level to go at, how far can you go. He went the right kind of distance in terms of controversial subjects considering the country that it was in, and then he got some really huge laughs. Yeah. And it was really, really good. So shout out to him. It was nice to meet him. I feel like we probably will bump into him at some point in the future. So yeah, wicked show. So that's it on Russell Peters. Next.
Don't give any spoilers away, please. But Batman.
Please.
Let's
Please
talk
don't.
about the fact that Vic's not seen Batman yet, and now
This
we
is
found
really-
ourselves in a precarious situation.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but you were
No.
just like forget it. I'll just talk about whatever you want.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Or you can
I'm
spoil
like-
whatever
I'm
I
like
want.
first-
It's my fault for not having seen it by now. So if you want to spoil it, I don't
No
care.
spoilers. No spoilers. No. I'm like, first 3 days, I need to watch that. Like that's.
It's
that's
been
the
more
thing
than
for
3
me.
days.
I'm saying normally.
Oh,
under normal
normally, okay,
circumstances.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. It's a tricky situation to think about, but obviously the film is out, and it's one of those things where I'm like, I want to get it on the show, but I also don't want to spoil Vic's experience. But what I will say is I just want to take a position on it, which is that, like, Kara Swisher was on Pivot with Stephanie Rule a couple of episodes ago, and she was like, oh, I've heard it's terrible. And there are some people on the planet that are like, it's a terrible film. And I'm like, how? It's a brilliant film.
Yeah, but then there's the opposite that I was saying is better than Dark Knight. So you're always going to get both sides of it.
I think this film is the beginning of a series of interpretations. As always, nobody comes along and just does one Batman film, but there is real potential that if this filmmaker, whoever it is, I'm not big on directors and whatnot, but if they do three, when you put 3 for 3, you might look at the one that the Dark Knight guy did. What was his name?
Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
You might look at 3 versus 3 and be like, oh, it's tricky. Because I remember after the first Batman that Christopher Nolan did, I was like, great film, love it, good, love it. But then when the Joker movie came out, I was like, this might be my favorite film of all time. Like that one with the Joker is on the same level as Scarface for me. It's as interesting a film with as complex a character. So I really liked it. You just have to watch it as a priority. In fact, so much so that, I went with my friend Pally, and an hour later on the road, we were just still like, how good is that film? He texted me 2 days ago. He's like, I can't get the film out of my head.
I might go watch it this weekend.
I might come watch it with you again. Because
Really?
he was like, I want to watch it a second time. And I was like, how long will you
Fair
wait
enough.
before you watch it a second time? He was like, I'd need to wait about a week. And I was like, yeah, the same. So actually, if we have a down day this week and you're up for watching it, I'd definitely be up for watching it
Yeah,
again.
I'm down.
Has to be IMAX, though. I mean, it doesn't have to be IMAX, but...
I'd want to watch it in IMAX.
Yeah,
first.
Dude,
That's
if it was online, I'd watch it online.
Nah,
This
not-
idiot.
not a chance.
This guy's like, I'm just going to download it and stream it. What a Gen Z.
Nah, don't do
Dude,
that.
I
Don't do
just
that.
like the comfort of my bed.
Oh, you know why we said, right? So you can't say that on the podcast.
No.
For the Catwoman scenes. Yeah, no.
No.
In
And how was Zoe Kravitz?
I didn't know it was Zoe Kravitz, which is
really?
really funny because once I went on a date with Zoe Kravitz's body double.
Really?
And you didn't know that was Zoe Kravitz?
No, I said, what do you do? She goes, I'm an artist, I'm a model, and I body double for Zoe Kravitz. And I was like, who's that? I mean, I'm assuming it's Lenny Kravitz's daughter,
Yeah.
right? And then I Googled it and I was like, oh, this makes sense. You basically both look the same. So yeah,
and that didn't work out.
yeah, no, it was one date, but it was a time where I was in my early 30s and I was just shooting my shot anywhere. Do you know what I mean? I was like, and sometimes you land. Look, now I've got a story to talk about on the podcast, even though the story is like 10 years old. But yeah, so it was good. She was good. Like I said, I didn't know who she was, but I thought that she did a good job. I think more so than any individual character in that film, and I would summarize it like this as to the case for why I think it's a good film, is that I walked out of there and I was like, I'm just grateful for the effort. There's a lot of content creators, whether they're making movies or anything really, that just don't put in the effort, that like cut corners or that don't think through all the details, because, you know, we're at an age right now where we've seen a lot of good films and we've seen a lot of bad films, and there's a natural skepticism. You actually, part of your brain is watching any piece of content waiting for that mistake. You know, I always call it like the Phoebe's hair in Friends situation, where like Phoebe's talking and her hair's over her left shoulder, and then when the camera cuts back to her hair's not there anymore. And it's like, what's it called, an inconsistency or whatever?
Continuity.
Yeah, there's a continuity issue. Yeah. It was just the fact that there was so much effort put in there, and you really got a sense that the people that made this film were like, look, we are probably coming off the greatest franchise interpretation of this character, and you know, the bar is set super high, and you can tell that they moved hell and high water to reach it. I'm not going to say if it was as good. I'm not going to say if it was better or worse. But there is no doubt in the world that when you watch that film that you're like, there was a team of people that were under pressure to figure it out. And, you know, updated cultural references and all that is incredible, but they don't overdo it. The emphasis of who they emphasize on, like characters and actors, is just, they've just rethought it all. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really incredible. Almost like the opposite side of the coin of what the Christopher Nolan ones were, which is amazing, because as you're watching it, you're like, oh, I felt this feeling before, but I've never seen it this way. So it's just such a good film. So if you're up for it this weekend, we'll go watch it. Yeah. No character spoilers. There's a lot more in terms of characters than even I was expecting. So there's so much to give away, and I'm just not going to go anywhere near it because I know how I would feel. But what I can say to you is that it's just a superb film, and you should absolutely go out there and watch it. And also, I think as well, it separates DC from Marvel, because Marvel will do cheap gags. You know, the guy Thor will throw his hammer and then it'll hit somebody on the head and something stupid will happen, whereas this is like a human being, and it's just excellent. It's
always been the case between DC and Marvel. Plus, you also got to remember that you're right about the bar being set high on the Dark Knight trilogy, on the Christopher Nolan ones, and it's almost like that Batman character, the actor who plays Batman is as controversial as who plays James Bond, right?
Oh, good point. Yeah.
So when you think about everyone that's played Batman, from Adam West through to Val Kilmer and George Clooney, through to Michael Keaton, through to Christian Bale, Ben Affleck, and now Robert Pattinson, there's no consistency there on who's playing Batman. Like Christian Bale was great, Michael Keaton great, Adam West also great. But Val Kilmer and George Clooney, you know, super controversial, and even those films were as well. And Robert Pattinson and Ben Affleck as well, like, again, super controversial, because like he doesn't belong in a Batman costume. Plus he played like a couple of another superhero before. But Robert Pattinson, going into it, he's not your archetypal Batman actor. He's like skinny and too broody, not dark, but broody, you know, not mysterious, but just like a bit weird and a bit kind of like sullen. So he's not.
Sounds like Alex.
It does sound a bit like Alex, yeah.
I'll be the next
skinny
Batman.
and sullen.
But he's not the character. He's not the actor that you would go. That's Batman. You know, when they think about James Bond, you think about Daniel Craig and you go, yeah, that makes sense.
Did it? When
Not
Daniel
at the
Craig
start.
died,
Not at the start. Not at the
Yeah.
No,
to
not
me
at
it
the
did.
start.
To me, it
No,
did.
I don't think so.
You could peg him because at the time there was no other British actor that could do it. That was at the right level, the right look, the right
But
credentials,
Daniel Craig wasn't the right look.
credits.
Daniel Craig came out here looking like a UFC fighter.
Yeah, but that's the whole
he
point.
brought the new like James Bond in.
Well, no, I don't want to get too much into the James Bond thing, but the whole idea behind Casino Royale is that that's the original James Bond, and they were restarting James Bond at that point.
Oh.
So they needed that character, they needed that actor.
Well, they had a window of opportunity there to change it up. Yeah,
that's exactly it. So anyway, but yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Nice. Okay, so definitely worth checking out.
So you had a couple of venue meetings this week.
Yeah, could be the case that pre-Ramadan we end out with a bunch of gigs this, coming up. When I say gigs, they're really two that are close to my heart. It's been if you've been following the podcast, you'll know that for the last couple of months, definitely since we started ALGO, we've been trying to figure out if there's an opportunity to do My Friends, Your Friends. A concrete opportunity has presented itself this week. It's kind of verbally been agreed on a handshake. Alex came along to the meeting, and there's a couple of things about this My Friends, Your Friends that would make it really, really special. And if you're thinking, Burj Khalifa or something like that, no, it's not that. We've done that before. There are other ways of making it special. The deal is not closed, so we're not going to announce it yet, but sometime between this episode and the next episode, if you follow me on social media at Raj Kotecha, you'll definitely get the announcement before anybody else, or at My Friends, Your Friends on Instagram. Of course, that post will probably be a collab between my account and that account. And I would say, if you're keen for My Friends, Your Friends, if you want to see people in a way that we did in 2019, then I'd say we're probably at the 50% mark of it happening. So be positive. And then on the flip side, there's also a concrete offer that's come in for another Love Soul party. Unfortunately, Vic's going to be traveling, but there's going to be another Love Soul party potentially as well. Again, I would say that's at the 50% mark. So if you add them both up, there'll probably be some sort of event that I'll put on before the end of the month and pre-Ramadan.
And the good thing about the first 50% and the last 50% is it takes longer to get to the first 50% than it does to the final 100%.
You think so?
Yeah, definitely.
I think in terms of like work and prep, yeah, but in terms of opening and closing the deal.
In terms of like just getting it over the finish line and going, right, now we can announce it. That first 50%, like imagine we're at 50% now, but it's taken some time to get to that 50%.
Yeah.
In the next week, we can announce whether it's going to happen.
No, but it's weird though. Like, I had this particular scenario of My Friends, Your Friends that I really wanted to do. And then, I'd been making a few phone calls and I wasn't feeling like, okay, yeah, this could happen. And then Alex and I just pulled up yesterday. In fact, we were just rolling around yesterday. I made one phone call. The person knew who I was when they answered the phone. They were like, hello, Raj. And I was like, hello. And I said, can we have a chat? And she goes, yeah. So then, 15 minutes later, we're talking. And then it almost felt like there was no resistance on, hosting a My Friends, Your Friends. And it's, I'm just positive about it. So anyway, 50-50. Almost giving away too much there. But it was a good meeting. You were in the meeting.
Yeah.
Good indicators.
I think it went well.
Yeah, it went well. Alex definitely had a crush on the person that we're doing the deal with.
Tag in the show notes. Clip it out and send it.
Yeah, he is. I think it's Alex.
Dude, I didn't even speak about her first. Raj did.
Yeah, she's
well, you wouldn't, would you?
Consummate professional. But yeah, Alex was like, you could see like, in the old cartoons where there's like hearts coming out above the head. It was like that. All right, so that's where we're at on the events. Events cruised, hold tight. Announcements to come soon, hopefully. All right, next.
International Women's Day.
Hey, that was a good one. I enjoyed that. So for International Women's Day, we were working. And we had a shoot with one of our clients. Shout out to Meher. She did really well. She was on a panel. And it was for Talk 100.3 FM.
Yep.
So we went there. There was 16 or 17 impressive women, movers and shakers from around Dubai, across different industries, from education to influencers to all different sectors. And it was really good. So enjoyed that. It was definitely interesting to see some of the comments. Like obviously we were privy to what was being discussed there. But one thing that I found which was quite interesting is when they asked people, what is it, you want to speak on International Women's Day. Some people said, I wish we didn't have to have an International Women's Day. Like I wish that we could that everything was already equal. So I thought that was quite interesting, but I think there's a lot of work to do.
Yep.
There's clearly a lot of work to do. We've been speaking about initiatives for women, even pre-International Women's Day. Like we realized, like, hang on a second, there could be some additional stuff that we could use our platforms on. But overall, it was a really good shoot, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
How did just on the content side, how did you find doing a live shoot like that? Because that's different to doing, someone on stage doing a keynote or doing something like this or in a studio. That's got a lot more dynamic and moving parts to it.
Yes, but also we're there to film one person. It's not like we're there to film every single woman there.
But it's similar to doing live though, because
Yeah.
when the client speaks, they speak real time once and
that's
for
true.
all. It's going out on radio. There's no redos. There's no
Yeah.
retakes.
Mm-hmm.
So our job is just to be like reality fly on the wall style, like D-Rock style as
Yeah.
we call it. So it's similar, except for rather than all the focus being on one person, the person just gets the mic for 4.5, 5 minutes. It goes live out on air. It was
Yeah.
pretty chill.
No, it was pretty chill overall.
And
Yeah.
you
It
got a
wasn't
good
like
breakfast as well, didn't
yeah,
you?
good breakfast.
And we got a good breakfast,
That's
yeah.
good.
Shout out to the
Yeah.
team at Talk 100.3 for hosting that. So
So you had
our
a couple
man
of,
Digby,
yeah.
super cool cat. He's one of the dudes in the city that I really feel like, you know, if you said to me, like, if you had more time, who would you go kick it with? I always love kicking it with people that are 10, 15 years older than me because they've got wisdom and perspective. They started at a time where you kind of wish you worked in. Like I always, as a guy who was very active in the nightclub world, I regret not being part of like the Hacienda movement and stuff like that. So it's nice to hear those kind of stories. So shout out to him. Shout out to Lachlan Kitch, our boy. He's killing it. He's like killing it with the, you know, music and podcasting and producing, and Muriel and all the crew over at the radio station that held it down for us. Karishma and the other young girl as well. I forget her name. This is one of the downsides of not having my phone when I'm recording this episode, but shout out to her as well. Okay, cool. So that was very good. International Women's Day. If you celebrated, let us know how you celebrated. Let us know if you're doing any initiatives in and around women that we can get behind and support, because we do have a big network. So yeah, very, very cool. And shout out to everybody who is celebrating International Women's Day. We didn't say it on the day because we were just rammed recording stuff. But yeah, you know, big love to everybody who's celebrating.
Cool. So next one is UAE and US crypto laws.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Overall, good stuff. We're finally at a stage right now where there is a bunch of regulation. What I like about this, so in summary, this week, what feels like almost a synchronized announcement, the US and the UAE have announced a whole bunch of additional government alignment with the cryptocurrency world. In the US, President Joe Biden has said that he wants to, he's basically signed an executive order to look into crypto from a point of view of, and there's 6 different things. I expect anybody who's listening to this podcast, if you're hearing about this for the first time, that you go and Google it. But a couple of interesting things is what is going to be the role of the cryptocurrencies in terms of US's overall competitiveness, and obviously the opportunities when it comes to, you know, making profits on cryptocurrencies, how they're regulated, who all the different stakeholders are in it. And in the UAE side, they've announced, it's called VARA, which is the Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority.
Yeah.
Now, that's not new in the UAE. We have regulatory authorities for real estate and a bunch of different things. So the UAE definitely knows what it's doing when it comes to like setting these kind of things up. And one thing I like about the UAE's announcement more so than the US's one is that the UAE has like free market dynamics. Like you can come here and you can make something of yourself. But what it doesn't tolerate is funny business, like you know, stealing from people, crime. Everybody knows the UAE is not a place where you want to come and do crime. So the fact that they've stepped out, and you know, there's already free zones where you can do crypto trading here. But in essence, and again, go ahead and Google it, do your own research, as they say in the industry. But in essence, if you're going to be participating in the crypto industry, whether as an individual or as a company, you will need to register for a license. What kind of transparency they're looking for, what kind of authority they have, all to be confirmed, but really a good thing.
So do you think IG and Coinbase is held back on
Definitely.
their
Yeah,
products?
as my first thought is that everyone's expecting a Coinbase NFT gallery and everyone's expecting an Instagram NFT gallery, and they would have 100%. I mean, we were expecting it any day now, and yet they've waited for this regulation to come out. In my opinion, obviously, I don't work for either of these companies, but I think that they'd much rather launch something like this, which is going to cause mass adoption. They'll wait until there's like some sort of regulation, because you open a floodgate like that. I mean, you talk about free market economics, period, and then you talk about technology that supports free market economics on a massive platform like Instagram. Like, it's all well and good having the option to buy and trade NFTs, but having the option to buy and trade NFTs on an app that's been created by Facebook, where it's just as easy as upload, download, you know, pay, it would open the floodgates. And I think these are floodgates that if you've got the option of opening them post-regulation, you'd rather open them post-regulation rather than pre-regulation, because pre-regulation makes it harder for the government then to retrospectively be like, well, Instagram's got to do this when it comes to NFTs, and Coinbase being a place which is technically a coin exchange, which has different like token dynamics on it, it goes this way. And, you know, Instagram's not going to do swaps between cryptocurrencies and NFTs if that's something that they choose to do. So, yeah, I think that they've definitely waited.
You're going to get less pushback from the government, which causes more kind of trust as such, and therefore more adoption. So why would they want to go through the hassle of having to get the pushback from the government, then have to rechange things based on regulations that they're doing retrospectively and in hindsight and all this kind of stuff? And you know, they might be talking to the government about this kind of stuff as well. Like, okay, this is how it's going to work, and there might be advisors to the government.
Yeah, one way that I assess these kind of things is, I saw an old clip recently, and I will not be able to find it on my YouTube, but essentially it was an old 80s game show in the UK.
Okay.
And anybody who makes it towards the final rounds, there's typically less competitors. There might be 1, 2, or 3 competitors in the final round. And then they remind people what you're playing for. And it's at that point that they'll bring out like a mini or a VCR, integrated VCR TV, you know, for the runner-up. And the reason why I say that is because that's when stuff goes mainstream, where it's like, that's what the average person, the average working to upper working class person will look on the couch and be like, oh, I'd like to win that car. Or you know, it's never $1 million. It might be $10,000. Something that would make a meaningful difference for somebody who is like, you know, still on the come up, socially speaking. So I think that if the government regulates it and it becomes an asset or a commodity that people value, will we end up in a situation whereby a game show within the next 24 months will be like, you know, the person who ever wins this game show will get a Disneyland NFT that gives them 10 years access to Disneyland, as well as, you know, and then you never know, like 1 year later, they could be like, oh, it gives you 10 years access to Disneyland and exclusive airdrops of Disney characters, or access to movies, Disney movies, or things like that. So, you know, we look at Amazon Prime right now. If Amazon Prime becomes an NFT, you know, at the moment we have to manually put in your credit card and then it expires and things of that nature. Whereas, you know, can you go and buy a 10-year Amazon Prime that's logged on the blockchain? So I think once it becomes something that becomes a social incentive, like in a game show environment, it'll become mainstream. And that would not happen pre-regulation. No. And so this is Web 3.0's 2.0.
Yes.
This is the, you know what I mean? This is this is the first pimple on the face, or the first greasy hair experience, like puberty, for Web 3.0. Yeah, Vic just looked at Alex. Alex's hair is always generally dry and consistent, to be fair. So it's not like he doesn't really suffer from any of the ailments that I had when I was young.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
So it just means that...
You're good because you don't have hair.
Yeah. Or pimples or grease.
True.
It just means there's a good opportunity for innovation as well now. It will still take some time. And I think the Web 2 thing that you're saying, you know, I've said it as well. I'm not a native Web 3. It's not kind of something that I'm going to like dive headfirst into, and I need Web 2 to feel safe and to feel comfortable, and I think the regulation will allow that.
Absolutely. Exciting times. Crypto nerds, drop me a message, Raj at creativecontentagency.com or at Raj Kotecha. I want to give a big shout out to my man Rohit Jaggi, who called me the other day, gave me a massive lowdown on VFriends and what's going to go on with VFriends 2. There's 200 new characters on the way. Shout out to Andy, who's heading up that whole project, our friend. VFriends, I think now's the time where I might actually get involved and participate. And also as well, Ethereum's layer 2 is coming, proof of stake. So that's looking like it's going to be really, really good. I think that's how's the best way to think about that? It's almost like there's a whole bunch of independent shops around a big supermarket, and the independent shops sell really, really quirky things. That's what it's like when it comes to Ethereum layer 2. You've got the big mall in the middle of the city, and that's Ethereum, but it's expensive. It's like a luxury mall. And then there's a whole bunch of boutique malls around it that do as good quality stuff, but cheaper. So L2s, layer 2s, they still sit on top of Ethereum, but they can process your transactions on the blockchain a fraction of the cost. And so now the big boy in the room, Ethereum, has been like, well, we'll just make our own lighter version of Ethereum that can do more transactions at lower cost. And I think when that clicks in, we're going to now start to see scale. And the creator of Ethereum was, I think it was called ETH Denver or ETH Colorado or something like that. And he said, yeah, we're pretty close to it. And ETH2 is actually working on its test net, on its test server. So we can't be more than 6 months away from that happening.
Nice.
Cool.
Next.
Talking of Andy, I think he shares my birthday.
Does he?
Yeah, he's either the 4th or the 5th. I messaged him.
Okay, what did he say?
Just said,
It's not my
thanks.
birthday, leave me alone.
No, like just replied back on DM, like just
Yeah.
Thanks.
IG announced the Creator Lab.
Oh, yeah, okay. So,
So I've been trying to watch this video all morning, but never got to it.
yeah, let's get straight to it. So with Instagram, essentially, and this is their words, they said we're going to be programming our own content. The 3 pillars that they're focusing on are,
Finding your voice,
yeah,
building community,
yeah,
thinking long term.
yeah. Now, we have in the 4 pieces of content, we talk about 3 stages, which is the piloting stage, where you try and figure out what works for you. And then you've got your growth stage, and then you've got your innovation stage. It's funny that Adam, the CEO of Instagram, has actually said that where he's going to put attention, time, and resources is educating the Instagram community on those 3 things, which is firstly finding your voice, which takes a bit of time. Like my voice in 2022 has definitely found itself on this podcast more so than on videos. Then building a community. I think people that recognize that there's an opportunity to build a community and then do a good job of growing one are the new rock stars. And then the final one was,
Thinking long term.
which he said as monetizing. He said that we believe that everybody should turn their content creation into a business, or should have the option of turning it into a business. The weird thing about that is that if you turn Instagram into a business, you're doing it on Instagram, which means you're using their rails, you're going through their pipe. So if you're making money on Instagram, they're making money on Instagram. Instagram's making money on Instagram.
Did they not say they were going to test out subscriptions for creators?
Yeah, a couple of months ago, they said that you'd have the option of subscribing. You'd be able, there was 3 expressions of that. I think it was like a verification next to your name. If you comment, you can show that you're almost like a patron of it. So yeah, I think Instagram's going to definitely move into a paid platform. The one blind spot of Instagram and Facebook is that they've never shared the revenue that they make with creators. And so now that's going to be a step shift for them. But what is interesting about this is that every time Facebook gets into trouble about content that they are on their platforms, when I say Facebook, I mean MITRA as well. But they say, well, we're just a platform. We're not a publisher. So you can't treat us and scold us like a publisher for, nefarious content that's on our platforms. But now they are actually making custom content for their platform.
Yeah.
Like it's all well and good running Instagram accounts, but now they're actually going to tell you, here's some content about how to use our platform. It's something that YouTube's been doing for a long time. YouTube has a creator channel where you can go on there and get best practice when it comes to descriptions and thumbnails and trends and things of that nature. So yeah, IG is really stepping up. Do you feel like IG's under threat? Do you think by putting out weekly updates and trying to be, quote unquote innovative, that they are really feeling the pressure from all angles? YouTube Shorts on one side, TikTok on the other side. It's Snapchat will never die. It seems like there seems to be a lot of pressure.
I think that there has to be pressure, because otherwise all these platforms are just going to stay the same. They always have to one up each other.
What were you saying before about recommendations? Instagram's in a very generous frame of mind at the moment for creators.
So previously you were able to, if you made a post on Instagram, you would be able to sponsor or put it as an advertisement, and you would pay a certain amount of money throughout however many days you want to sponsor it for. But now with the Reels, what they're doing is they're basically sponsoring Reels for free. So it'll say because you liked a certain Reel, it'll suggest you another Reel from a different account in the same category kind of. So that's interesting.
But that's not dissimilar to You May Also Like, which is on the right-hand side on YouTube.
But they weren't doing that
Instagram
before.
never did that. It was either you pay or your pick or your post is not coming up on somebody's feed unless they're following you.
So, but perhaps a better way to frame that is, rather than they're giving you free sponsorship, they've just gone into the suggested space.
True. But I see it a lot, like every less than 10 posts, I'd say, which I think is like a good amount. That's a lot, and it changes the user experience. But the reason why they're probably doing that is they don't know what to suggest and to who. And so for the next 6 months, you might see it as 1 in every 10 posts. And after 6 months, you might see it in 1 in every 30. That's true.
But what they're doing is they're doing a data grab. So they've got to make 50 suggestions to Vik in the next 30 days to have an idea of what he likes. They're going to make 60 suggestions to me, 30 suggestions to you, because they don't know what to suggest. So they need to suggest a lot of suggestions for you to then respond to, whether it be through clicking on, following, liking, zooming in, spending more time, running the video a couple of times, for them to be like, I think Vik likes
whatever,
go-karting or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I think that shows a vulnerability. Also what I'd recommend as well to any creators out there, when you see an update in the terms and conditions, like there was this week on WhatsApp, they'll always try and offer you summaries. Oh, in essence, our policy changes can come down to the following 3 things. But look on that document for where it actually says privacy policy, and keep clicking it until you get the long form privacy policy. And then open that on your laptop and then type in the keywords that matter to you. Could be encryption, could be sharing, could be cloud, could be whatever. And then that will bounce you, if you hit Control F, that will bounce you directly to the words that matter to you. Ownership, intellectual property or whatever. And that will give you a very, very, I do that all the time every time there's a TNC change, because then that ultimately affects the content strategy as well. Did Maya just wake up?
Yeah, she's up.
Hello, Maya. Okay.
She's going to my bag.
Nice. That's her second bed. All right, next.
You put out a tweet recently about consulting that got some good love.
Oh, yeah.
You want to expand on that?
Yeah. I thought about this a few months ago, and I thought I tweeted it ages ago. I went to look for it, and I realized I hadn't tweeted it. But thank you to everybody who sent like the fire emoji on DM for this one. But essentially, I'll paraphrase and I'll say that years of consulting have taught me one thing, which is to solve a person's problem, you first have to solve the person and then help that person solve the problem. Because anybody who's paying you, typically they want to know what it is that you're doing for them or how you're doing it. Sharing the methodology is important to them, because people don't pay consultants long term. They want to pick up some of the magic of what it is. And then we've seen as well, do you remember I was telling you about that DM that I got?
Yeah.
About someone being, fired or not wanting to work with them anymore. Not on our side, but in our ecosystem, we knew of somebody who got fired by their supplier because the supplier didn't want to work with them anymore. And it's just something I think about a lot, especially because I think there's a lot of people in the UK, a lot of people globally are still looking about where they want to make their revenue in the future. I know a lot of people that are quitting their jobs, that are being like, I'm going to get my own freelance visa and go it alone. And typically the situation you find yourself in is you find yourself consulting. You're like, let me plug into your business. I'll solve this over the next 6 weeks or 6 months. I'm really good at this. I feel like I can get you to the solution pretty quickly. But one thing I wish I'd learned much earlier is, what is the personality of the person you're trying to solve for? And can you work with this person long term? I've said this before about teaching. As I advance through the world of teaching, is that there's no such thing as teaching. There's just learning how people learn. So the first thing you should do is look around the room and be like, how many people in this room learn like this? How many people in the room learn like this? How many people in the room learn like this? And there's 3 or 4 or 5 really big pronounced learning styles. And I feel like you've got to look at your client and be like, can I solve this person? Do I know what makes them tick? Do I know what suggestions will motivate them? All consultants try and map their clients first and be like, would my client think like this? Should I bring her or him this idea? But yeah, that's just a little tip that I wanted to put out. It definitely resonated with a lot of people. If anybody wants an expansion on it, then, please let me know. What do you think? Because you're consulting full time now, in the sense that we were all producing as well at the same time.
So I think it's weird, right? Because when you think about an individual, that's one thing, but you can relate that to consulting for a business itself. So we've been in situations where we're looking at content strategy and how to deploy that within an organization, but then we find cracks in the business, whether that be through internal resources, recruitment, just, data,
product market fit,
pricing, the whole, like everything in the business. And then you and I kind of sit down and go, okay, cool. So we can put in a content strategy and we can execute it, but there's so many cracks in the business that before like going full throttle on a content strategy, we need to look at these areas and go, okay, what can we help with so that the content strategy sits on top of that and actually works? Because if it sits on a weak foundation, the content strategy is not going to be effective, or as effective as it could be. So it's a similar kind of principle, but just on a bigger scale. You've got to be thinking about, okay, well, where does your consulting fit in that person or that business's world? And what does it sit on top of? And is that a stable foundation? Same sort of thing.
Well, yeah,
That's
a
important
way
to
that
me.
I frame it to people is like, do you want to put a magnifying glass on this?
Yeah, I've heard you say that.
Like, if you want to really, really put a magnifying glass on this particular thing that you believe is a diamond, understand that when you bring additional attention to this thing, to this entity, whether it be an offer or a business, that the magnifying glass doesn't care what it magnifies. It will magnify the flaws in your business as much as it will magnify the strengths of your business. And so, yeah, I think that's something that's really worth thinking about. Why do you want to build your Instagram following, for example, to get more deals, to only realize that in your back office you can't process those
Can't
deals?
service the deals. Yeah, I think it's so important. And you know what's so crazy is that we do a lot of that work, but it's wrapped into what we do on a day-to-day basis when we're sitting with a client, and it's not overtly done or like explicitly said, but it's just something that we need to do.
Yeah.
And then when it gets to a point where it's like, actually, hold on a second, we need to tell you, we need to fix this first before we go on to content. That's when it expresses itself overtly, and we're like, okay, let's just stop the show for a second. We need to fix your data, or that person in your organization, they're not going to be able to service this type of deal, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, the difference between an amateur and a professional is the counter intuition. Like, a professional is prepared to lose a deal and not get themselves involved in a bunch of foolery because they're saying, don't work with us. I say that to clients all the time. I say that to clients. There are so many people that want to work with us that have the money to work with us, but they're much earlier in their stage than we'd prefer. And I'm like, just watch VaynerWorld and watch a couple of my interviews. Do that. Let that be the concrete, like, of your foundation. Let that settle and let it dry. Let us build on top of it. And I think when you're young and you first start off, I have this t-shirt in every size, you're just a super yes man.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do email campaigns. Yeah, I can do your cookie tracking. Yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I can do... And then sometimes you can, and sometimes you figure out along the way. But yeah, that's a little tip. So if anybody's going into consulting and you need some help, you know, whether it be building your brand or learning how the ropes work, then subject to our timing, you can always reach out to us, you know. We'd love to help you through that. It is an incredible industry when you figure it out, but you're not going to figure it out in less than 10 years. So if you want to consult, just know that it's a long game.
Cool. So let's end with a couple of content recommendations. You had one this morning, which was Ray Dalio.
Yeah, get the name of that right, please. Just bring it up on YouTube. It's incredible. I love Ray Dalio. He's, you know, he's an investor. He runs a hedge fund. And depending on how you look at the market, his hedge fund has either been traditionally one of the best hedge funds in the game, you know, if you let Tony Robbins tell it, or if you're like Anand Murthy from Group Chat, he's like his portfolio hasn't performed that well. But Ray Dalio's latest video, which is based on his animated Principles series, is called
Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order, Why Nations Succeed and Fail.
Okay, so Alex, throw that name up on the screen. Let's link to it in the show notes as well, and let's take a little bit of that animation and just overlay it right now, what we're talking about, so you know what to look for. It's really excellent. Now, previous to this, Ray had a book called Principles, and he put out a 10-part series or 10 steps that outline those principles. Do you have the name of that?
No, I get it now.
Okay, so whilst he's getting that, it's you know, he had this animated series and it's incredible. I actually tried watching it with Ine once, but I think at 5 years old it wasn't like the right thing. But essentially, Ray Dalio comes from a point of view of first principles, which is like, if we distill this down to the handful of moving parts that essentially make it what it is, how do you look at it? So he's done it for a changing world order. Now, this video, I absolutely think you should prioritize and go and watch. It's 43 minutes. Genuinely, I feel like in that 43 minutes, you will get the equivalent of the first 2 to 3 weeks of an economics degree. Like, if you were to take economics and you were maybe, and not, by the way, not the first 2 to 3 weeks of being a fresher or a freshman. I'm talking about the first 2 to 3 weeks of your second semester, because they use animations, they use analogies, they use metaphors, and they use also historically correct information, like, you know, the truth about the rise of other countries and how they've handled debt and what they've traded. Really, really incredible stuff. But essentially the point he's trying to make is that we are now at a stage whereby superpowers come and go. The Dutch had their time where they took over the world. The Great Britain had its time where there was a Great British Empire. And we're now in America's time, and it's making the argument that we might be towards the end of America's economic power over the world, specifically with the role of the dollar as the reserve currency of the planet, the currency of the planet that most countries want to have a holding of, and how that might be shifting towards China. Absolutely recommend watching it. Just Google the name that Vik mentioned at the beginning, which was
Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order, Why Nations Succeed and Fail.
Yeah, that's it. So we highly recommended. Anybody else checked out any content this week that they want to talk about or they want to direct people to?
Yeah, Alex, you mentioned that Mr. Beast was on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
So I started listening to it this morning. I'm only 19 minutes and 56 seconds in. It's good so far. Like, you know, they've just done the kind of like little bit of background on how Mr. Beast started and where he started. I think Joe Rogan is only...
Who is Mr. Beast?
Mr. Beast is the biggest YouTube creator that does all these like crazy stunts and giveaways and videos online. You might want to explain.
Is he the biggest of all time or as of now?
He's in the conversation.
Yeah. I think he's like top 2, top 3
at the moment
of all time.
All of his channels, he's got about 200 million subscribers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a typical video for him would be like, I bought every item in the supermarket.
Yeah. Or, you know, spend, you know, $100,000 in 10 minutes or whatever.
Or
it
like,
might be.
whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
So he makes a lot of money off YouTube and then he puts it back in. But what I found interesting about the first 20 minutes of the interview with Joe Rogan is this. Joe Rogan is great at being inquisitive, right? So particularly when he doesn't know anything about a topic, and he doesn't really know anything about Mr. Beast. He goes, I was introduced to you by my 11-year-old daughter about a year ago, which is somewhat surprising, but also not at the same time. So he's very like kind of curious about his beginning, his upbringing, you know, why he started. And I think if the first 20 minutes are like that, the next 2 hours are going to be like that as well. I think Joe Rogan's just going to keep asking amazing questions, just get loads of information out of Mr. Beast. And you know what? For someone who's a little bit awkward, Mr. Beast, he's introverted, he's actually very, like, he just speaks, like he just talks and talks and talks and talks, and he gives everything away. Like he's got no like qualms about, he's not hidden about what he's saying.
Very transparent.
He's very
I like
transparent,
him as a creator.
very open, and he just says everything. He talks about money, he talks about everything, and it's great. So I think that we want to check out. I'm, you know, looking forward to listening to the rest of it.
Yeah. If you're interested in a couple of other perspectives on Mr. Beast as well, I'd highly recommend Mr. Beast talking to Ali Abdaal, who's a YouTube creator, and Mr. Beast talking to MKBHD, who's obviously one of the biggest YouTube creators as well. They are much shorter episodes and will give you a much better insight if you're a creator, because he's a creator talking to other creators. And it's not that Joe Rogan's not a creator, but Joe Rogan talks about a lot more stuff over a lot more period of time. But if you're building up your YouTube career, then seeing Mr. Beast talk to MKBHD and Ali Abdaal is great. It's definitely primed me for this content that you're talking about. I know that once I've got a little bit of time, you know, the Joe Rogan one's going to be super useful. And the good thing about being in the same industry as Mr. Beast is that you only need 1 or 2 joules from 3 hours of conversation with Joe Rogan, and that can fundamentally change the things you create, the way you create, even for us, the way we run the business.
Yeah, the Ali Abdaal one is amazing. Just talking of Ali Abdaal, I saw a post from him the other day, and he goes, your first 50 videos are for you to hone your skills. Your next 50 videos are to give value to your audience. So I thought that was quite interesting. That kind of maps out that kind of piloting phase and
very similar. We should spend more time talking about that, I think, because I think that will remove a lot of stress from creators to be like, look, the first time you do anything in life in general, you're not going to be great at it unless you're gifted or prodigal. But if you're not, then, you know, you got to be patient with something like that. Even with us with the podcast as well, like, I think this is a good one. It's a good place to end. Have you seen anything you want to check out this week?
Yeah, last night as well, I watched an episode of Joe Rogan with Nims Day, who is the guy who did the 14 Peaks documentary on Netflix. I know you watched it, right?
No, I saw it on his feed. I haven't watched it.
Have you watched the documentary?
No, not yet.
Really should watch it.
I saw a bit of it in Nairobi.
It's pretty insane. Yeah, like superhuman type stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
What do you like about it? Wait, did you finish? Did you say Joe Rogan with him?
Yeah.
Did you finish it?
Yeah, I finished it.
Highlights?
I think it's very interesting talking because in the documentary you just see what he did, and like you see a bit of his backstory, but none of that was ever on video. So it's not like he was speaking about it much. And on Joe Rogan's podcast, he really talks about like where he grew up, his childhood, him going to join the Gurkhas, and like just
he went to Nepal and joined them.
Yeah. he was, I think, the first Gurkha to also go into like an elite division in the last like 200 years. Like,
Is he Nepali?
Yeah.
He is, yeah?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
like at least superhuman, this guy. You should really watch
Nepali's
the
are tough.
documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Good.
That's everything.
Yeah.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alex. Good stuff. We'll be sending you to Nepal.
Right?
Toughen you up a little bit.
No, but I do want to climb Mount Everest at some point in my life.
You should.
That's on the bucket
You
list.
should.
Yeah, wear that T-shirt as well. So if someone's like, you're looking for somebody who's got like light pink and blue, and some brown hair sticking out the top of the snow. Okay, amazing, cool. Well, if you enjoyed the episode, as always, hit subscribe, like, comment, and Apple crew, Spotify crew, 5-star rating and review would be amazing. I think that's it, really. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you've got any feedback for any of us, email us. Alex's Instagram is
Alex Christoph, ALEXCHRISTOPHE.
good. Vic is
At Vik Majaria, VIKMORJARIA.
and I'm Raj Kotecha. You all know me by now. Do you remember when we saw that yesterday in the shoot?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I tried to do an inside joke, but no one got it.
No,
Okay, brilliant.
I got it.
All right, guys. See you on the next episode. Peace.